Carpetbagger here, coming to you live from the north, more specifically Royalton, Minnesota. And today we're on a mission. We're on a mission for Paul Bunyan. So I am obsessed with Paul Bunyan and the impact he has had on this great country of ours. This larger than life figure, this folklore, this character that could do anything, that is larger than anyone. And certain states, you know, I think we love Paul Bunyan through all the United States, but certain states, their love for Paul goes to the next level. On my travels, I've seen a lot of statues of Paul Bunyan, and it is clear certain states hold him in very high regard. Often, like in Michigan, you'll see lots of Paul Bunyan statues, and other places will have Paul Bunyan statues. I think Northern California celebrates Paul Bunyan. Anywhere where it's rural, anywhere where there's lots of trees to cut down, they like to celebrate Paul Bunyan. But I believe that no other state loves Paul Bunyan quite as much as Minnesota. And a few years ago, in the early days of this channel, I did a mini road trip where I went through Minnesota looking for different statues, different places that were themed after Paul Bunyan. And if you want to go check out that video, I found a few cool places. But today I'm here to fill in the major gaps that I left in my original video and find several very unique Paul Bunyan sites and statues. And we're here in Royalton, Minnesota. We're just getting started with the trip today here at Treasure City. Treasure City is it's a gift shop. They sell seashells mainly. Unfortunately, we're a little early, so they are not open, but they do have this display over here. The Treasure City Paul Bunyan face cutouts. Let's take a look and see who's here. Now, you know, Paul Bunyan, you can even recognize him without a face. That's how iconic he is. So we have Paul Bunyan. There's the dog Woofy. I'm unfamiliar with Woofy. Of course, Paul Bunyan's traditional companion Babe, the blue ox there. And this is Lucette. This is Paul Bunyan's wife. You can see she is also a very gigantic person. And these are, I'm guessing these are Paul Bunyan's kids, Paulette and Paul Jr. But we have no time to waste, because we are on a Bunyan hunt. So stopped off here in Brainerd, Minnesota, here at this rest area to use the bathroom. But look who's just hanging out here at the rest area. It's Paul! It's Paul! It's Paul! Yes, here we have an 11.5-foot statue of Paul Bunyan with his hand joyfully raised in the air, waving at tourists that arrive here to use the rest area. And you're allowed to climb on him, so you can get a sitting on the lap shot of Paul. It's a little slick. Ooh. Here, I think we're good. Here. Hello, all you little people out there. All right, let's see. Heading into the rest area, notice they have this taxidermy display right here in the lobby, showing the creatures that live in the lakes here. Got a delicious bass right there. Looks like, I don't know, what is he eating there? Is that a leech? Got this bird here. Looks like he's gonna go try to snag that poor little frog right there and gobble him up. Yeah, nature's violent. Everyone eats each other. This bird here gulping down a A little tadpole. Yeah, poor tadpoles, they have it rough. Oh, what's this right here? He's too big and mean to be eating tadpoles. He's going after this bluegill right here. I got a little turtle sitting on the log there. While I was in the Welcome Center, I actually bought a little souvenir. Let me see what we got. Mini Bunyan there. A little Bunyan to join us on our Bunyan road trip. Oh, he looks excited. You know, when Paul Bunyan was born, he was such a big baby, they had to use a covered wagon as his crib. Now, still in Brainerd, Minnesota, we're stopping off at Cragen's Resort, where they have this statue of Paul and his faithful companion, Babe, the blue ox. Now, this statue holds the distinction of being the newest Paul Bunyan statue. This appeared around 2018. Of course, Paul found his companion, Babe, in a winter that was so cold that the snow itself turned blue, and the coldness turned Babe blue for life. But Paul rescued her, and they have remained friends forever. And it looks like this Babe actually is wearing a flannel covering, much like Paul. So I guess keeping herself warm for any future blue snows. Now, unlike the last statue, we are not allowed to climb or hang on this Paul and Babe. But I think it'd be okay if little Paul got his photo taken on the back of Babe. There we go. Say cheese, little guy. Of course, Paul Bunyan had a massive appetite, so much so that he actually had his own personal cook at the logging camp named Sourdough Sam. And Sourdough Sam would assemble a team that every morning would start a massive forest fire and use a giant skillet, and they would ice skate across the skillet with bacon strapped to their feet to get the skillet nice and greasy, and then cook giant massive flapjacks for Paul to gorge on. We stopped off in Hackensack, Minnesota, here at the Paul Bunyan State Trail. And here in Hackensack, we actually have a chainsaw carved version of Paul Bunyan. It seems fitting that Paul would be carved out of a piece of wood, as he also often carved up pieces of wood himself. Although I don't think Paul would ever use a chainsaw. And I guess Hackensack is actually known for its chainsaw carving events, according to this sign. The Paul Bunyan State Trail right here next to this beautiful lake. Of course, Minnesota, the land of 1,000 lakes. So there's pretty much a lake anywhere you look. Get to meet a member of Paul Bunyan's family here in Hackensack. As here they have Lucette, Paul Bunyan's wife. Let's see, she's 17 feet tall. Notice she has kind of a interesting shaped body here. There's like a massive bulge out to the side. What is that called? Don't women used to get their skirts, they have like a wire cage under their dress that would give them that form to their skirt. Now, this statue is actually erected in the 50s, and the town voted on what the name of Paul Bunyan's wife would be, and they came up with Lucette. See, little Paul, that look of pure love in his eyes. This sign here gives you an idea of how many lakes there are in Minnesota. No matter where you go, here we are in Hackensack, no matter where you go, there's just a billion lakes. Land of a billion lakes. And check this out, a lion couch. On the corner there, we see Lucette's Pizza and Pub, named after the wife of Paul Bunyan. I bet Paul and his family could put away a few pizzas. And just a block or so away from Lucette, we have another member of Paul Bunyan's immediate family. Here we have the minuscule Paul Bunyan Jr. Don't worry, son, you'll grow. It's important to note that all of the lakes here in Minnesota were caused by Paul and Babe tromping around the state. Stopped off in Akeley, Minnesota, and this is a real treat. Check out this, the world's largest Paul Bunyan statue. Just look at this, the axe. He's got his hand out so you can sit in his loving hand and just look at his mighty beard, those big blue eyes. That is a Paul. And they have a selfie station for Paul right here. Actually put your phone or camera right here, and that'll help line you up and get you a good picture with Paul. Let's try it out. Says it was built in 1984, actually between 1984 and 1985. This was created. It truly is a massive sight in person. You'd really get the perspective of what it's like to be around an actual giant. And I don't know, I know this isn't the tallest statue, the solid gold driller in Tulsa, Oklahoma is, but if you weren't kneeling and standing straight up, this might be the largest statue. I don't have any facts to back that up, but just by eyeballing it, I wonder if this would be one of the tallest or the tallest fiberglass statue in the country. We'll just do a walk around and kind of get a look at him from all angles. And look at his ear there, that big old ear. And see how long his legs are as he's crouching down to give a little man a seat to sit in. Let's walk around here, around the back, and see his suspenders back there, the back of his head, and just that giant double-sided axe is a trademark of all Paul Bunyans. Wow. What a sight. Here we see a cutout where you can either be Paul, Babe, or Lucette. And check this out. I was not even aware this existed. The Akeley Paul Bunyan Museum. See these little statues, Paul Bunyan. These are actually different versions of Paul Bunyan statues from a different town. This is the Brainerd Paul Bunyan. This is the Akeley Paul Bunyan in this town. And then the Bemidji Paul Bunyan. We'll hopefully be seeing him in a little bit. I think he's a bobblehead. Some very large fish up there on the wall. That sign there says Paul Bunyan's Minnow. A lot of different antique items donated by locals. There's a Cupid doll handkerchief. I still do not understand what a Cupid doll is and what they're doing. There's some class pictures over the years, some 1980s era class pictures. And then have a wall of trophies. These are local sports trophies. Looks like that might be a fishing trophy there. There's first place for the Muskie Queen. Mississippi River was actually created by Paul and Babe. They were going to make a logging river so they could put lumber down through the entire United States. So they plowed the Mississippi River. They pushed the dirt to each side. One side, the dirt, became the Appalachian Mountains. The other pile of dirt, the Rockies. Also, Paul created the Great Lakes as a place to store extra water for the rivers that he would straighten by hand. Straighten them out to make sure that the logs would go down them easier. We have landed the town of Bemidji, B-M-I-D-J-I, Bemidji, Minnesota. And look at what we have here in Bemidji. This Paul Bunyan here, built 1937, making him the oldest Paul Bunyan in existence. Earlier today we saw the youngest Paul Bunyan, built in 2018. This one built 1937, has stood here the whole time. Apparently this Babe would actually travel to state fairs, but was eventually locked in place here next to Paul. A very interesting design here for this Paul. Very broad-shouldered, kind of a little blocky. He's got a little pipe there in his mouth. You know, of course, you gotta love that big blue ox. Just notice this here. The town of Bemidji apparently is the first city on the Mississippi. That's interesting. And apparently, it's true. This is Lake Bemidji right here. You can walk out on to the dock. It says this is the northernmost lake that feeds in to the Mississippi River. So wow. Maybe see where the Mississippi starts. And there it is. If you look over there, under that bridge, that's the exact point that the Mississippi River starts. So we have Paul Bunyan standing here at the creation, at the beginning point of the Mississippi River that he created, remember. And here next to the statues is the Bemidji Tourist Information Center. Supposedly they have some of Paul Bunyan's personal effects in there. Look up here, we have Paul Bunyan's shotgun. That massive gun. I don't know why Paul would need a shotgun given his massive capabilities, but I guess you gotta be safe. There's a Paul Bunyan crunch bar, a Paul Bunyan bobber, and then a Paul Bunyan fishing lure. This looks like a Paul Bunyan made out of lint? I don't know. A lot of Paul Bunyan items in here. Paul Bunyan's baby moccasins, a Hershey Kiss, Paul Bunyan's toothpick, There's his belt, his pipe, his giant lighter there, scissors, a big bolt, he's got a screwdriver, pocket knife, his toothbrush. See Paul Bunyan's spaghetti right there. And there's his Q-tip. That's kind of gross. And then his toenail clippings. Ugh. Looks like we have some of Paul Bunyan's dice. They're actually very heavy. Oh. There we go. There's the big old axe of Bunyan right there. Actually, I probably better not play with that. Is this one of those things used for curling, I think? Curling? We have Paul Bunyan's pocket watch, Paul Bunyan's fishing pole, his stocking cap. Looks like this is Paul Bunyan's telephone. I guess that's Paul Bunyan's hockey jersey. And that's like an old Scottish hat, and looks like Paul Bunyan won a gold medal for curling. Oh yeah, you see on the picture there, he's actually wearing the medal. The local curling team won a medal. See his mittens back there, his socks, his shaving razor, his wallet. And there is some stamps from some American legends, Paul Bunyan, John Henry, and Mighty Casey at the bat. Also in here we have the Fireplace of the States. Apparently they have stones from all the different United States and some other important stones as well. There's a stone from the Vicksburg, Mississippi National Cemetery. There's a stone from the U.S. Capitol in Washington, D.C. So there's also a piece of the Empire State Building in here. I noticed they have numbers. A little dot right there gives a number, and then you can look it up in a book. I'll tell you where that stone came from. There's a large fly swatter. It says Minnesota mosquito swatter. Also the giant broom there over the bathrooms. You can see Paul and Babe over there, but across the street stands this Muffler Man style Native American. Now local legend says that this is Nana Bozo, who is the arch nemesis of Paul Bunyan and allegedly murdered Paul Bunyan. So they hated Paul Bunyan for cutting down so many trees, and he beat him to death with a fish. That's the legend. Now in the most recent Godzilla movie, King Kong vs. Godzilla came out, I know there was a lot of chatter on the internet of whether or not Paul Bunyan was considered a kaiju or a giant monster. And I don't know, I don't really know the answer to that. If you know the answer to that, of course, leave it in the comments section. All I know is that if they made Godzilla versus Kong versus Bunyan, that's a license to print money. Now we have stopped in Fosston, Minnesota. We are now delving deep into the Paul Bunyan extended universe. This guy here, Cordwood Pete. He is Paul Bunyan's younger brother. And there is his pet donkey, Tamarack. So Paul Bunyan has a pet ox, a giant ox. Cordwood Pete, it's got a donkey. So while Paul Bunyan is a giant, one of the tallest men to ever have lived, Cordwood Pete is only 4'9". It is said that while Paul Bunyan could do the work of 100 men, do the work of 100 lumberjacks, Cordwood Pete could do the work of two lumberjacks. So still way better than an average lumberjack, but failing to live up to his brother's lofty standards, only as good as 2 lumberjacks combined. Now it said the reason that Cordwood Pete is so short while Paul Bunyan is so tall is that when they're at the breakfast table, Paul Bunyan would eat all the flapjacks, all those pancakes, and leave none for poor Cordwood Pete, and he would end up being small. Of course, as I mentioned, always accompanied by his donkey Tamarack, kind of the counterpoint to Babe the ox. And poor Cordwood Pete would constantly be belittled. That's how he got his name, Cordwood Pete. They said that he was only good enough to cut cordwood, and always tried to live up to his standards set by his legendary brother. Kind of a tale of being in someone's shadow. Cordwood Pete existed in his shadow, and I love that these different towns, how they incorporate or take ownership of different members of the Paul Bunyan family. We saw the town that had embraced Lucette, Paul Bunyan's wife, and this town, Fawston, they have taken ownership of humble yet mighty Cordwood Pete. You know, I'd heard the word cordwood used usually in the sense of stacked up like cordwood, so it's like something you stack. But I looked it up. Cordwood is actually when you take wood and basically use it like bricks. You like stack them together and put mortar in between them and create a house made of cordwood. I've never seen a cordwood house or a cordwood wall. If anyone out there is familiar with cordwood, leave a comment in the comments section. As we all love and admire the mighty Paul Bunyan, let none of us ever forget the small but mighty Cordwood Pete. Now here at the same park where Cordwood Pete sits, we have this teeny tiny little chapel. I guess this is a teeny tiny chapel for teeny tiny Cordwood Pete because Paul Bunyan would never be able to fit in here. Oh, this is a really tiny one. Yeah, they have I think 8 people could sit in here. 2 per seat. There's 4 seats, and then there's a kneeler there. You put your knees and read the Bible on your knees. I want everyone to be aware that I drove an hour and a half out of my way to see Cordwood Pete. Oh, I'm dedicated, if nothing else. Well, his body grew big, but his brain stayed small. He was tree chopping, friend stomping, house crushing Paul. As we drive through the white birch forest here, we're coming up on our final Paul Bunyan stop of the day. So we've arrived here in Kelleher, Minnesota at the Paul Bunyan Memorial Park. And yes, you heard correctly. I said Paul Bunyan Memorial Park, because here we are, the grave site of Paul Bunyan. See this massive pile of earth where our gentle giant lays at rest. Here is the gravestone. Paul Bunyan, born 1794, and from what I've gathered from the stories, he was actually born in Maine before traveling to Minnesota. So Paul Bunyan, born 1794, died 1899, and his epitaph: "Here lies Paul." That is all. A giant man with a giant personality and giant accomplishments, but a simple epitaph. Walk over here and just observe the mound. You can see how big Paul must be under that earth. And here next to Paul Bunyan's grave, the playground equipment, so the laughter of children serenades Paul in his final sleep. here under this pavilion. You can see Paul and Babe in happier, livelier times. And I'll be honest with you guys. I've driven probably 5-6 hours today, seeing all these different Paul Bunyan sites, and then to end at his grave, something like makes me a little emotional, really. But well, I mean, I didn't expect to be like actually choked up at the Paul Bunyan grave. It's so quiet here. So quiet here in this park. There's not a soul around. Just me and the grave. But still got another 4.5 hours to get to my hotel room. It has been quite a day, but seen quite a few. We've seen Paul Bunyan, we've seen his family, we've seen the extended Paul Bunyan universe here in Minnesota. And I don't think I've seen every Paul Bunyan statue. I know there's one in California, in Northern California at Trees of Mystery. But if you know any Paul Bunyan statues that I've not been to, let me know. Leave a comment in the comment section. I don't know, maybe an unrealistic goal to set for myself to see every Paul Bunyan statue, because there are a lot. But I do think, you consider this Minnesota, I do feel like this is the land of Bunyan. They go out, as I said, the extended Paul Bunyan universe, and truly a classic American character, a tall tale, a folklore hero, a folk hero. Is there anyone bigger than Paul Bunyan? I don't know. Think about the others. Johnny Appleseed. I think Mark Klein made a fiberglass statue or two of Johnny Appleseed, but not as many Johnny Appleseed statues. I have been to Johnny Appleseed's grave as well, by the way, as I've been to both Johnny Appleseed and Paul Bunyan's grave. There's a statue in West Virginia of John Henry. I don't think there's any statues to Pecos Bill. But, so yeah, the standing legend, the standing king of legends, king of tall tales, call them what you will, the mighty Paul Bunyan. And thank you all for joining me here on this trip, on this adventure to seek out Bunyan and all things Bunyan. If you like these videos, I've been traveling the United States for years, been to all 48 continental United States, filming roadside attractions, amusement parks, museums, haunted houses, and other fun stuff. If you subscribe, it'll let you know I release videos quite frequently. I have a very frequent upload stream coming at you. I want to check out some of the older videos on my channel. Like I said, I've been a lot of places and I filmed a lot of interesting things. If you'd like to help support the channel, consider donating to Patreon. $3 or more will get you a postcard once a month from me. And all that information is in the description. Also have a link to the Etsy shop where we sell different enamel pins. And all that just helps keep this train on the tracks, this boat in the water, and this dirigible in the air. Until next time, my friends, this one's in the bag.